Alright, gang. This does it. This brings us to the end of the LP. And if you excuse me for just 1 second, I'm gonna... I probably shouldn't have saved yet. Hang on. I'm gonna turn off Frostfall, just so that we don't freeze to death, because I want to do a little bit of talking here. Let's disable. Just don't want to freeze to death while we're doing this. That's all. Let's save it again so that I have that as the last save with it disabled. That is the end of our LP. Concludes Annaïg's story. She follows this road then to Farron. She's pretty much right on the border. That Pine Frost Tower used to be the watchtower on the border between High Rock and Skyrim. She's on her way to Farron, which is right over here somewhere. So what I wanted to do before we conclude is I wanted to take a look at her... Well, let's take out her gear. Because she's operating with the Blade of Winterhold, which we got as... Well, she hasn't used any of this, but we got the Blade of Winterhold for being a Thane of Winterhold, right? From Jarl Courier. And then we got another one from Jarl Kralgar, I think. The Ebony Broadsword of Leeching. This is the sword that was used to dispatch Elfric's Stormcloak. It used to be the sword of General Tullius, so we're going to definitely keep that. That's going to go on a display case somewhere. Elven Dagger, which we'll sell. Glass Broadsword of the Blaze. We got this as an item when we were promoted within the Imperial Legion to, I forget, Questor, Prefect, something like that. Glass Longsword. That we can also sell. Slicer, our faithful axe, which was Annaïg's signature weapon for most of the LP. Staff of Uric Galderson, which we found in, I think, Sarthal, right? Which we didn't use very much, actually. And then, of course, the Steel War Axe of Cowardice, which was Ulfric's Stormcloak's weapon, which we'll also put in a display case someday. We have Annaïg's College of Winterhold cloak that she made for herself for the party that she had. Her swimming ring, which she used only once. Her backpack, which was with her most of the LP, had a Amulet of Stendarr on it. Cloak of the Northern Paladin, which we wore for a larger portion of the LP, I think, than any other. No, I take it back. We wore probably our fur cloak, the largest portion of the LP. This one was the first one that we found that was customized, I guess, and seemed to fit her character a little bit. Maybe not so much the Northern Paladin cloak, but it was flashy, it looked cool, and we actually ended up having to take it off. We took it off because Arender died, and we felt like we needed a change after that. And also because it was drawing attention from Stormcloaks. They knew of a chick who was riding around with a Dunmer killing Stormcloaks, and she was wearing a Northern Paladin cloak, and so that was the end of that. That we can sell. That's our face cover, which we've used in cold climates. Good old boots, which we've had since almost the beginning of the LP. Fine clothes, which we bought to go see the Jarl in Solitude and then rarely used. I think we only used them once. Galder Amulet Fragment, which we only wore for a little bit. Glass armor, which we can sell. Gold Diamond Ring, which we were going to enchant but never did. Robes we can sell. Mage's Circlet, that was Salvos Aran's Circlet. Our magic gloves that we made, or we bought rather, or found I think, and then enchanted them. Our Master Wizard's robes, which we got of course when we became Master Wizard of the college, and even though we resigned our post, we weren't forced to give up our robes, which was nice. Some good looking robes. On Warm Sands, the cloak that we found to replace the Northern Paladin cloak, we found that in Lost Knives hideout, and we've worn it since then to kind of as kind of a in memoriam for Arender, who we lost in Lost Knives hideout. Our Regen hood, which has been with us for a very, very long time, maybe the whole LP. Ring of Magicka, we have two of them. We could sell one of them. Sarthal amulet, which we've had since the beginning of Act 2. Salvos Aran's amulet, which of course we also got from the Archmage, and then Ulfric's clothing, which we'll also put on a display case or a mannequin at some point. This was our cloak that we had most of the LP. Potions, yeah, whatever. We don't need to do anything about potions. Scrolls, a shit ton of scrolls we never used. Our food, Annaïg loved her booze. Man, she drank a lot of booze. But I think it kind of holds true to the kind of medieval... I mean, it's obviously a fantasy setting, but in terms of technology, it's a medieval setting. Because in the medieval days, in the real world at least in medieval Europe, people drank mostly booze. They didn't drink a lot of water, because water was often polluted or contaminated in some fashion or another. And because alcohol was, fermented, the alcohol was unfriendly to dangerous bacteria or things that could make you sick. So back then, drinking alcohol was actually a safer alternative than drinking water. So while to our modern eyes, I just ate a honey nut treat. To our modern eyes, it might look like Annaïg is an alcoholic. She's probably just average. Potions, we did really good with our alchemy. Books, a ton of books. A lot of them notes and journals from Annaïg's story. The conspirator materials. 2 of those. Why do we have 2 of those? Oh well. And then, of course, the books that we got. Well, first, a book that we got because we liked Arender. We wanted to read up on his history. His race's history. And then the books that we got from the Wanderer's Tale mod. Histories series, which we read. The Myth and Religion series. And then the Lore Compendium. Races. And the Wanderer's Tale series, which is only 2 books so far. And of course, we also had the Bear of Markarth because we wanted to learn more about Ulfric as we got to know more about him. Shitload of keys. But still, no more than, we don't need a scroll bar for them, which is kind of surprising. And then just a few gems, soul gems, which we never actually captured enough souls. Or rather, we captured some souls, but we never captured as many as I thought that we should. Let's take a look at the map, see everything that Annaïg explored. You'll see that she spent almost no time in the Reach. We explored quite a bit of Hafengar, seeing actually several locations here just toward the very end of the LP. Morthal, saw a pretty good amount of Morthal. Falkreath Hold spent probably the least amount of time after the Reach. Whoa, where the hell is Falkreath? Least amount of time in Falkreath after the Reach, I guess. Good old Riverwood. Whiterun Hold spent quite a lot of time in Whiterun, but not really to explore. Of course, we had the terrible encounter with Mir Molnir, the Western Watchtower. That was one of our first experiences after discovering Helgen being burned out after leaving Falkreath. And of course, we did Bleak Falls Barrow as well, and saw all of this around. Some of this stuff, these things, were not discovered by Annaïg until much, much later in the LP. The Rift, did not spend a lot of time in the Rift, actually. Some in the 3rd act because of the Civil War quest. Ended up defending Rift from a Stormcloak attack, actually. Eastmarch, spent some time in Eastmarch early and then not at all later until the very, very end of the LP. Or at least tried to avoid it. Winterhold, spent almost the entire 2nd act here, or around it. The Pale, which is kind of sort of like all over here. We actually explored quite a bit of the Pale. A lot of Winterhold quests sent us near the Pale. And a lot of our trips from Whiterun to Eastmarch, or from Whiterun to Winterhold, or, took us through the Pale. So we did Morthal, we did Whiterun. I think that's all the holds, right? Okay. How do I get out of this? I have to do that. Let's take a look at our spells. Alteration. We used Alteration quite a bit between the flesh spells, armor spells, and we ended up using Paralyze quite a bit in the latter portions of the LP. Used Telekinesis a few times, but more so for fun. The party, we used it to throw things in the air and try to shoot firebolts at them, and then of course we threw it at the Jarl of Falkreath. We used it to throw a bottle of Blackbriar mead at the Jarl of Falkreath right at the end. We had, of course, our Open Master spell, which was invaluable. Never used Equilibrium, I don't think. Candlelight we used a lot. Illusion, it was a school that just did not get a lot of use from me. Even though there are some really cool spells in here, like Fear, Fury, Rally. Scapegoat, I could never get Scapegoat to work, and I think that's my fault. I'm not going to blame that on anybody else. Phantom Image proved very handy, actually. Even outside of combat, it proved very handy, combined with Faint Shift. Destruction. Here's where Annaïg earned her keep. Level 85. What were we in illusion? It doesn't tell us. Oh, level 46. Alteration, we were level 82. Oh, wow, so that's actually pretty close to destruction then. Yeah, every spell we could get our hands on in destruction, pretty much. Mostly used flames. Fireball more than anything else, probably. Next up, probably lightning bolt. And then probably fireball. It was dangerous. It was hard to use the area of effect spells because there were very few times where we didn't have a companion. Once we got to the level where we could actually, we had the knowledge to use the area of effect spells. Didn't use the wall spells that often, but maybe in the future. In a potential Act 4. Conjuration. Level 75 we got to. Conjuring Atrodax exclusively. And then, of course, our Twin Blood spells count as Conjuration spells, but I don't know if they leveled you up when you use them or not. Twin Blood Summoning we used way more often. Not terribly often, but way more often than Twin Blood Eruption, which I think I only remember using once. Spells are twice as strong and cost half as much. But it just seemed to make more sense to have more targets for the enemy to attack with Twin Blood Summoning than it did to just use Twin Blood Eruption. Annaïg would still be a target with that on, So, Soul Trap didn't use that much. Expel Daedra, tried to use a couple times in that Flame Atrodax there towards the end of Act 3. Couldn't get it to work right. Maybe because it wasn't a summoned Daedra. Our good old Storm Atrodax, Rouge, Neige, Peter. Bound Sword, which we use, I think, only until the Myrmulnir fight, then kind of gave it up. And Restoration, which we actually used less than Illusion, even. Wow. Oh, I'm sorry, we used it more than Illusion, rather. This was handy in the attack on Windhelm, and I will probably use that more in the future, I think. Although it is a toggle spell, and it took me a while to figure that out. Chastise and Cleansing, and then Chastise and Purgatory were really useful against Draugr, especially Purgatory with its explosion effect. And then, of course, we had healing spells, which we rarely used, wards, which we never used, and Turn Undead, which I didn't even realize we had until a commenter pointed it out to me, and I never thought to use it. And then, of course, our powers, these are mainly mods. In fact, almost exclusively mods. Horse Whistle, of course. Active effects, we had all kinds of active effects. From our adaptation, we got 6% resistance to exposure. Backpack gave us fortified blocking and fortified carry weight. We currently have the Blessings of Stendarr, which block, but that doesn't help us. Ebony Flesh, of course. Our boots were full, which means we ate, so you get a bonus from that. Our Mage's Circlet, I'm not going to go through all these. Our Master Wizard's Robes were just so freaking awesome. Made our magicka regenerate 150% faster. Restoration spells were 25% stronger. Increased our magicka by 50 points. Illusion spells were 25% cheaper. Destruction spells were 25% stronger. Conjuration spells cost 25% less to cast, and Alteration as well. And then Mixed Blood, of course, was our race power, which gave us a 15% resistance to magicka. Our Cloak on Warm Sands muffled us. When we were fully quenched, our stamina recovers 10% faster, which was not that useful to us. We had, of course, our Regen Hood, our Ring of Magicka, Salvos Iron's Amulet, and then, of course, our Birth Sign, the Atrodax, which, of course, we did as a birth sign rather than just a stone. We got 150 extra points of magicka, which was very helpful. 50% absorb spells, which came in very handy when we would run out of magicka if we were facing off against mages. And 95% slower magicka regeneration, which sucked, but which was offset considerably once we got the Master Wizard's Robes, which helped us regenerate 150% faster. And then, of course, our Well Rested. So that was our magicka. And then our skills. We'll start in the magic schools. Illusion we got to 46. We took Novice and Apprentice, and that was it. Conjuration we got to 75. We took quite a few perks here. Novice, Apprentice, Adept. We could unlock Expert, actually, now. At level 37, we'll probably do that if we come back to it, of course. Which would let us cast Peter for half magicka, which would be useful. Then, of course, we got Ancient Rites 1, which allowed us to conjure 2 Daedra, which was huge help. At a level 110, it'll let you conjure 3, I think, which is the maximum. Summoner 1 of 4, 3 times as far away. I think if we take it again, which we could, it would be 5 times as far away. And then on the other on the other side of the conjuration tree, we got Daedric Potency, which upped our conjure Atronax, and then Daedric Wrath, which upped into 70%, and increased their resistance to opposing elements, which was also very useful. Destruction, we got to 85, which was the height of our magic learning, and we unlocked a shitload. Novice Destruction, Apprentice Destruction, Adept Destruction, Expert Destruction. We unlocked Rash Studies, 4 of 5 of those, that's a lot. We unlocked Destruction Dual Casting, of course, and Impact, which increased the stagger. And we got all 3 Augmented Flames, which helped us to knock targets down more frequently. We got 1 level of Intense Flames, which reduced targets' armors. Excuse me, guys, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that, that came out of nowhere. And then, of course, 1 level of Augmented Shock, which helped us to disintegrate targets, which I don't remember ever witnessing a direct disintegration. I remember targets disappearing, but I don't remember if it was because they disintegrated or what. And then, of course, 1 level of Shocking Blast, which reduces the target's magicka. And Elemental Ram, which was pretty cool too, took down a target's resistance by 10% per hit, which was noticeable, I think, there toward the end. Targets took way more damage the second and third hits of a missile attack than they did the first one. There's actually quite a few more really cool perks up here, but up here you have to choose one element. You have to choose Burning Heart, Icy Heart, or Voltaic Heart. So you pick Flame, Ice, or Lightning, and you can only develop from then on out in those perks. And in fact, later, I think this one, which requires 150, or is it this one? Yeah. So once you get to 120, if you take one of these perks, so there's a Fire perk, an Ice perk, and a Lightning perk. But when you pick this, you can no longer cast spells in the other 2 elemental schools. You can only cast with your perk that you take. I think Annaïg would obviously, if she ever made it that far, she would obviously take, I think, probably Flames, because that's the one she uses the most. But it'd be hard to say goodbye to Peter, too. He was incredibly useful. Restoration, which was, we actually used more than Illusion somehow, but we only took 1 perk in it, which was Novice. Alteration, which we used a lot, almost as lot, more than Conjuration, and almost as much as Destruction. We never took a dual cast, but we did take Novice, Apprentice, Adept, and Expert, so that we could use, by the end, we could use Ebony Flesh, and did it pretty cheap too. We took all 3 levels of Mage Armor, which made the flesh spells stronger as long as we weren't wearing armor, which we never did. We took Second Skin, which unlocked secondary effects on all the spells, which was good. And we took Metamorphosis, which doubled the duration of those spells. Enchanting, we didn't put a single perk into it, even though we got it up to level 69. Smithing, we got a couple levels up, probably from skill books and such. Heavy Armor, another, I think maybe a level up here or there. I think we got a couple synergy points, maybe. And a block, I think we got some synergy points there. I know we got some skill books, same with heavy weaponry, light weaponry. Light weaponry we got some because of using Slicer, the axe. But a lot of it was probably skill books. Marksmanship, same deal. I don't think we ever used a bow or crossbow. Light armor, same deal. Sneak, we snuck, but we didn't do it as much as I thought we would. I was thinking someday in the future we'd get this, but we barely even made it halfway to that. And then this would be really cool too. Sneak attacks with spells now do 2.5 times as much damage. And this one, which makes them do 3.5 times. But that, I don't... We could play a whole other LP this length, and we'd probably never get there. Wayfarer, we got to level 68, but we only ever took 1 perk, which was that our campfires would burn 20% longer, and we'd move 5% faster in the wilds. And the longer that we went without taking perks in here, the less it made sense to take a perk here, because as we advanced, I think I mentioned this before, the creatures that we would get bonuses against were less and less dangerous to us. Fingersmith leveled up strictly because whenever you used a spell or used a key, it upped your Fingersmith, which I don't think makes much sense. I don't know that I like that aspect of Skyrim Redone. But it did actually help us level up quite a bit. Level up our character. Never put any perks into it. Speechcraft, we put 1 perk into it early, just to improve our prices, because the prices in SkyRe are shit. Even worse than the vanilla game. I could probably afford to put another 1 or 2 perks in there, but it just seems like there's always more important things to spend it on. And then, of course, Alchemy, which we got up to level 60 before it was over. So we could, next time we level up, take a perk there, and take a perk here as well. Never used any poisons, but we did make our own potions quite a bit. So that's Annaïg's skills. Last thing I want to do is just check out her journal here. So, let's go down here then. Very first one we did. Completed, rather. The very first one we completed was, of course, Rumors of Dragons, which was added by... it was added of sorts by the alternate start mod, so that when we walked through Helgen, this quest started up automatically, which we did shortly after leaving Falkreath, which was, of course, the first town that we found ourselves in. We woke up. I'll show you where we woke up. We spent the night. It's a really weird evening, but we spent the night in this cave, Haldir's Cairn, just outside of Falkreath, because we, of course, came into Markarth early one morning and got, what's his name? Kibble, or Kibel, to give us a ride, and he kind of kicked us out of the cart right here on the road. And we found this cave to just duck into to spend the night. We woke up the next morning, and that was the start of the LP, and we went to Falkreath. So that was the very, very beginning, and then of course we left Falkreath because it sucked. And we went east. We were going to go to Morrowind, and we encountered Helgen, and we decided we needed to do something about it. So we went to Riverwood. Nobody was at Riverwood that would listen to us. We went to Whiterun and told the Jarl there. And we had delayed burial. That's right, we encountered Cicero on the road just north of Whiterun. Took care of that. Convinced the farmer to help him out so that the farmer wouldn't end up dead, although Annaïg didn't know that, but she was worried about Cicero. Golden Claw. We went to Bleak Falls Barrow. Met a thief named Arvel who tried to double cross us but ended up being killed by a Draugr. Ended up getting out of Bleak Fall Barrow alive after we discovered the Dragonstone and brought it back to Farengar and Whiterun. And then we almost instantly had to go fight Mirmulnir with Irileth at the Western Watchtower. But when we slew Mirmulnir, that's when Annaïg's course deviated from that of the normal Dragonborn, because she wasn't the Dragonborn. We never had to report back to Jarl Balgruuf. That was just the end of that quest. And it was after that we encountered some Alakir who were looking for a woman in Whiterun that kind of weirded Annaïg out and made her think maybe that they were looking for her, but it turned out they were looking for Sadia. So we helped Sadia and ended up slaying the Red Guards who were after her, for better or for worse. We think probably now for worse, because Sadia never explained herself. And then we had Innocence Lost. Of course, we left shortly after the Sadia quest because we encountered an assassin on the road outside of Whiterun on our way back to Whiterun after clearing up Sadia's business, and we decided we had to get the hell out of Whiterun because people obviously knew who we were. We headed towards Windhelm because we were going to... Well, we'd heard that there was somebody there who was trying to call the Dark Brotherhood. We wanted to confront him about it and tell him to just knock it off, because we thought the Dark Brotherhood at the time was responsible for the assassination for the King and Queen of Faerun. And that ended up taking us down to Riften, where we thought we might actually leave for Morrowind after that, but we ended up killing Grelad the Kind, and then we had to go back to Windhelm, of course, to tell Aventus what had happened. And then we were, of course, captured by the Dark Brotherhood on our way to Winterhold. We were going to go to Winterhold, and we saw somebody who we thought... Well, we got a note, actually, saying that the Dark Brotherhood knew about us killing Grelad, so we decided to change course. We ended up spending the night in Nightgate Inn, but somebody at Nightgate Inn betrayed us to the Dark Brotherhood. and they found us. And we ended up having to kill Astrid, who at the time we did not know was the leader of the Dark Brotherhood. We ended up outside the abandoned shack and found our way to Morthal, where we learned that there was a murder there. And in investigating the murder, we found out about a vampiric conspiracy that we had to undo, which included killing Movarth, of all people. After that, we made our way back towards Winterhold to go to the college for both Sanctuary and for learning. And on the way, we stopped in Dawnstar and encountered who ended up becoming our friend, Arender, and helped him in his quest to dispel the powers of Vermina that had taken over the town. Arender ended up being our follower from that point on. Shortly after that, we encountered our... I don't even know. Bloody patron, Sanguine, whose name at the time was Sam Gweven. And that sent us on a crazy quest that ended up almost doubling the length of the first act, I think. But we ended up resolving it, and we learned a valuable lesson, and really, Annaïg thinks it's pretty cool that she can say that she parted with Sanguine, more than anything else. Finally, back in Windhelm, we ended up encountering a murder that we had to solve, which we did. It turned out to be, God, what was his name? I can't remember. He had House of Curiosities. What was his name? God damn it. You guys are going to comment. You're like, oh, what was this guy's name? You're like, oh, right, that's right. Sorry, I'll think of it in a minute, I'm sure. Finally, we made it to the college and started Act 2. Joined the college as an apprentice, a student, and from there, ended up doing a couple minor quests for the people of Winterhold, including Brina? No, what's her name? Berna, in the general goods store. We got a claw from her. We went to... Arender and us went to... oh god, what the hell is the guy's name? Some tomb. The tomb of the son of Isgrimor, I believe. Ingol's barrow. And brought back... what did we find there? I forget what we found there, but we cleared out the tomb and brought it back to Berna. We gave her the... Oh, it was a helm. Ingol's helm. And we also gave her the claw back. And then, of course, we also did the... Helm of Winterhold for your career, which made our first encounter with the Silver Hand, and then finally we joined the college on their expedition to explore Sarthal, where we found the staff of Uric Galderson, and we found the orb, which we went back to tell the Archmage about. We were required by Urag Groshub to recover some books from Felglow Keep, which were supposed to inform us about what the hell the orb actually was. Right. It was at this point that we were consulted by the Sigic Order, and we were kind of notified of just how dangerous this whole business was with the orb, the Eye of Magnus. We had to explore the college and find the Augur of Dunling, which was really spooky. And then we had to tell, of course, the Archmage that we were looking for the Staff of Magnus. Now, after this, the Staff of Magnus quest, we realized that this was going to be difficult, and we wanted to get as much help as we could. So we enlisted the students that were also in the college to come help us. And in order to do that, we had to do them favors first. One of them was to complete a flame cloak spell for Jazargo. Another one was to bring back a staff for Onmund. Well, actually, we wanted to bring back an amulet for Onmund, but Enthyr had the amulet. So we had to go get a staff for Enthyr so we could get the amulet from Enthyr to give it to Onmund. Then finally he was going to help us. And then we also did some weird spell testing for Berlina that finally got us all three students' help. Then we had to go find the Synod in Mazulft, which ended up being where the Oculory was, which told us that the Staff of Magnus was in Labyrinthian. And we went and told the Archmage that, at which point we realized the Archmage was dead, or at least was in trouble. And there were some problems in Winterhold. There were creatures, anomalies that were on the loose. We had to go defeat them, while the Archmage and Mirabelle tried to contain Ancano, who had taken control of the Eye. So then we raced with all possible speed to Labyrinthian, which took a day and a half to explore, I think, before we finally found the Staff of Magnus, and we returned to the college. At that point, we had to actually battle Ancano and several I don't even know how many, a dozen or so anomalies in the Hall of the Elements, which we were successful. We then spoke with the Sijiks, who took the eye away, and we spoke with Tolfdir, who decided, apparently with a plan in mind, that he would become the Archmage of the college, because he already has cloaks on him and everything. Then had to clean up a mess that ended up... There was some ruptures throughout Skyrim because of the Eye of Magnus we had to close down. After that, we went exploring we took some leave from the college and went to go find some Stormcloak camps, because we'd found some journals here and there that incriminated Stormcloaks in the perpetration of the murder of the King and Queen of Farron. And so we wanted to explore that further. And in the course of doing that, we realized that it in fact was the Stormcloaks that were responsible, and that it was actually Ulfric, of all people, who was behind the scheme. So we ended up deciding that it would be in our best interest to join the Imperial Legion. So we made our way to Solitude, and in going to Solitude, we heard that there was some weird magic being seen in Haafingar, northern Haafingar, and so we decided to go check it out. And we cleared out Wolf Skull Cave, where some necromancers were trying to resurrect Potema, the Wolf Queen, which was, of course, not a good sign. We then joined the Legion and began the Civil War quest, which required us to retrieve the Jagged Crown for General Tullius, which we did successfully with Legate Ricca. It was then that we realized that actually we knew it ahead of time, but it was only then that the Solitude government realized that the summoning of Queen Potema had not been stopped successfully, so we had to go nip that in the bud. Which required us to go into the ruins underneath Solitude, the catacombs, and actually confront her spirit and destroy it. Then we had to go to Whiterun and speak with Jarl Balgriff and confront him, basically challenge him to take a side, which he decided to side with us. So we had to go speak to Jarl Ulfric and present him with Balgriff's message, which was incredibly dangerous for Annaïg, but we did it, and Ulfric told us that he would be attacking Whiterun soon, so we went back to tell the Jarl, and sure enough, he did attack the very next day. We were able to successfully repel the Stormcloak forces that attacked. And it was shortly after that that we had to go fight in Fort Dunstad, which I think was in the Pale, right? So after the defense of Whiterun, we went back to Solitude and talked to the general. And he told us we were taking the Pale next, so we went to take Fort Dunstad after being assigned such by Legate Ricca in the Pale Imperial camp. We then, of course, battled for Dawnstar and won. Another rupture that we had to close in Falkreath, I believe. And then, of course, the campaign in the Rift, where we had to take over a Stormcloak caravan to get the supplies that they had, which ended up being more difficult than we wanted it to be because there was a bug with the Civil War Overhaul that ended up having Hadvar try to run to Whiterun. This was what you guys didn't see. This was off camera, but I did this again to get ourselves back to square, back to where we needed to be with the Civil War Overhaul. And then finally the Battle of Riften, which ended up being pretty eventful. We slew a lot of Stormcloaks, had to battle our way through the city even, and actually had to do battle with the Jarl's bodyguards right there in the palace. And then we went back to Whiterun and tried to help them rebuild the city. We, of course, did the Gildergreen quest. We ended up going back to Solitude, and of course the general told us that the next assault was going to be on Winterhold, so we had to release some prisoners that were in Fort Costa, which again was a little bit buggy, but we were able to do it. And then, of course, the assault on Winterhold itself, which was a good day for Annaïg because it meant that the city that she had spent the most time in, the city that she considered the most home, even though it was a miserable hellhole of a climate, was now no longer under Stormcloak control, so she could come and go freely. So then, finally, we had the battle against Eastmarch. We took Fort Amal. Then we had to, in an emergency, basically, save Riften from an attack, a last-ditch attack by Jarl Ulfric, which we did. And then, of course, after that, the attack on Windhelm itself. We also did the King Olaf quest for our friend Yvette San so that she could increase her wine sales. Our friend Lydia actually has King Olaf's sword, which we think that she will cherish for some time. Battle for Fort Amal, I already mentioned that. Shallowdoor's Insights, we found that in Stony Creek Cave, of course. Battle for Riften, which I said we defended Riften, and then the Battle for Windhelm, where we slew Ulfric Stormcloak and Galmar, who were the two perpetrators of the assassination of the King and Queen of Farron, which finally brings Annaïg's story to a close. Oh, and one thing, which I totally neglected to mention because it was in the miscellaneous quests and it didn't end up in here, but on our way to Riften from Winterhold to engage in the campaign in Riften, we lost our dear friend Arender in Lost Knife Hideout trying to retrieve Queen Freydis' sword, because we thought that if we got it, it was an artifact that Ulfric was looking for, and we thought if we have it and we bring it to Jarl Elisef, it will further her cause rather than Ulfric's, but it cost us our friend's life. We lost Arender in Lost Knife. We had Carjo as a follower for a little bit there afterwards, and then of course we had Lydia there towards the end. Here are all the miscellaneous quests we didn't do, but I don't really care about those. And then of course some quests that we encountered that we didn't do. This was Ill Met by Moonlight. We encountered this very, very early in the LP. Decided to get the hell out of Falkreath because it was so depressing. The Dawnguard, which if there is an Act 4, which there probably will be, this will occupy most of Annaïg's time. Mind of Madness, we encountered a crazy dark elf named Dervanin, but we decided not to have anything to do with that guy. Destroy the Dark Brotherhood. We killed Astrid, we talked to Commander Morrow, but he told us that we should kill Astrid ourselves, the rest of the Dark Brotherhood ourselves, which sounded crazy to Annaïg, so we never pursued that. Forbidden Legend, we found one part of the amulet, and of course we got Yorick Galderson's staff, but we never pursued it beyond that. Missing in Action was, of course, the Greymanes. Never did that quest. Forsworn Conspiracy, yeah, that happened when we ended up hungover in the Shrine of Dibella in Markarth, but there was no way we were going to spend more time in the Reach than we needed to. And then Boethiah's Calling, which we encountered just the other morning on our way to the Imperial camp to assault Windhelm. So of course we had more important things to do then as well. Okay, so then one other thing I wanted to look at here was Annaïg's stats, because we've played this game now. I think since I started the LP, I've put almost 200 hours into Skyrim, which of course isn't how many hours were spent recording, but that's a big chunk of it. I want to say that when all the episodes are uploaded, it will have been close to 100 total hours that we put into... the LP itself will be 100 total hours. I want to say Act 1 was about 32. Act 2 was also 32, even though it was fewer videos. And I think Act 3 is going to be closer to 36 by the time it's all said and done. But that works out to almost exactly 100 hours, which is pretty cool. And it'll be right around 300 videos, too, I think. Kind of nifty. I didn't plan it that way, but that's the way that it worked out. I'm glad that all 3 acts ended up being pretty close to the same amount of time. Anyway, general stats. We discovered 164 locations, cleared 41 dungeons, which is way fewer than, we would have cleared if we weren't playing such a roleplay heavy character. Passed 103 days. It's like I said, 3 months and, 3 months and about 2 weeks, I guess. Slept almost 900 hours, waited a little over 100, found 6 of the standing stones. There are, 14, I think? Found a total of 122.5 thousand gold. Carried at the most 21,628. I think right now we're around 13,000, 14,000. Looted 646 chests. Increased our skills 508 times. Read 71 skill books. Ate 1,621 pieces of food at only 8 training sessions. 220 books that we read. 2 horses owned, of course, Glim and Ben who ended up being donated to the Imperial Legion after the death of Arender. Owned 0 houses, invested in 0 stores. Almost 2,200 separate transactions with vendors, merchants. 10 persuasions, not one of Annaïg's strong suits. 2 bribes. Who did we bribe? I'm not remembering that. 1 intimidation, because Annaïg is 3 feet tall. Contracted and healed 7 diseases. Quests. 35 quests completed total. 73 miscellaneous objectives completed. 3 main quests completed. Of course, that ended when we killed Mjolnir. There was nothing else for us to do. 10 side quests completed. 0 companion quests, which sounds right. 11 College of Winterhold quests, which completed the whole thing. 0 Thieves Guild. 2 Dark Brotherhood quests, which we ended up nixing pretty early. 8 Civil War quests. 2 Daedric quests, that was Vermina and Sanguine. And then completed 1 total quest line. Really just 1? Shouldn't the Civil War quest be complete? And the College of Winterhold? Maybe there's 1... Maybe we have another, like, Aftershock or Aftermath, or whatever the College of Winterhold one is. Maybe it doesn't count it as complete until then, but I think it should. Combat. Annaïg's a monster. She killed 859 separate people. That's a lot. Killed almost 400 animals. 87 creatures, which I think includes like trolls and Falmer and things like that. 281 undead, which is actually a lower number than I would have guessed. 19 Daedra. 14 automatons, that would be dwarven spiders and such, which we only cleared 1 dwarven dungeon, so that sounds about right. Our favorite weapon was, of course, Slicer. We had 0 critical strikes with it, 0 sneak attacks with it, 0 backstabs with it, 0 weapons disarmed, 0 brawls won, and 0 bunnies slaughtered, which is all... That sounds like our Annaïg. Let's see magic. We learned 63 separate spells. Our favorite spell was Firebolt, which I think is not a surprise to anyone. Favorite school, Destruction. Although, how does it figure favorite school? Maybe by number of spells cast? Because I think we leveled our Alteration up higher than our Destruction. Oh, no. We leveled Destruction up the highest, and Alteration, I think, was second. 0 Dragon Soul. All of this is 0 because we weren't the Dragonborn. Crafting. We used only 6 soul gems, really? Can't believe we actually trapped more souls than we used soul gems. That's surprising. Wait a minute. Magic items made 79. Well, that would mean that we enchanted 79 items? So then what does soul gems used mean? I'm confused. Wouldn't these 2 numbers be roughly the same? Oh well. 0 weapons improved, 0 weapons made, 0 armor improved. Made 2 armor. What did we make? I don't recall making any armor. Maybe it counts like a cloak? No, we made a lot of cloaks. Or a backpack, maybe? Potions mixed, 1,177. Potions used, oh, we almost used as many as we mixed. Or, I'm sorry, other way around. We almost mixed as many as we used. 185 poisons used, we only used 2. I don't recall what we used them on. Maybe we poisoned Slicer a couple times. 1,013 ingredients harvested, 11 ingredients eaten, 0 Nern roots found, 154 wings plucked, and I was kind of sadistic with the butterflies, wasn't she? And crime. We had a 40 bounty in Falkreath. Maybe because we hit the Jarl with that bottle of Blackbriar mead? Total bounty of 1120, yeah, but that's kind of false, because our largest bounty was 1,000, which we got for killing a Thalmor prisoner in the Falkreath Stormcloak camp, and I paid that via console command because I felt like we shouldn't have gotten the bounty in the first place. So, that technically doesn't count. 0 locks picked. 0 pockets picked. 0 items pickpocketed. 0 times jailed, 0 days jailed, fine paid 1,000, again, because we console commanded it. 0 jail escapes, 3 items stolen. 72 assaults. 11 murders. 0 horses stolen, and 1 trespass. I wonder if that trespass was the Hall of Countenance. And we just trespassed there 100 times or whatever. Locks picked, obviously that didn't change because we used magic spells every time we opened a lock. That was the general stats. So, one last thing that I wanted to talk about here before we finish, and that is, what have I learned? What have I enjoyed? And what do I think could have been done differently in the LP? Well, first off, what have I learned? First, mods, I think. Mods is the biggest thing, because this is my first modded LP of anything ever. It's only my second LP ever. First one that was modded. And Bethesda games, while they're very mod-friendly and there's a huge modding community, I learned that I must be much more careful about which mods I select and making sure that they're compatible. I also need to do much more research in testing the mods and reading the readmes. I think it would have benefited me more too if I would have researched some mods longer before I started the game, because throughout the game, as the LP went on, there were many mods that you guys suggested to me that I thought were awesome, that some of which I added, some of which by the time you suggested it was so late in the LP that I didn't bother, but I would have really liked to have added a lot of your suggestions from the very beginning, and I think I could have done that if I would have spent more time researching modded Skyrim, either reading up on it or checking out modded LPs and seeing what they were using. But I deliberately kind of blacked myself out from LPs of Skyrim because I wanted to not copy anything or avoid something because I feel like I was copying. So that, I think I think it helped. I think it was a good thing for the LP, but it also kind of put me at a disadvantage in terms of figuring out which mods would work well for an LP. Something else I learned. Playing as a female was fun. It was interesting. It was a step out of my comfort zone. But I don't know that I'll do it again. At least not soon. And I say that not because I didn't enjoy it, but because I think that being a dude, it kind of interfered with my ability to partly be the character, I guess. I feel like just my voice, it just didn't seem right with my voice speaking in first person as Annaïg when I did that sometimes. I didn't do it all the time, but I did it sometimes. And it just didn't seem to fit right. And like, for instance, the very end when we slew Ulfric, I had some lines written down, and I read them, and I just don't think it worked as well as I would have liked. I think it would have worked much better if we had a female voice reading those lines. But otherwise, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think, though, like I said, I would do it differently in the future. Let's see, what else did I learn? I learned that the LPing community is fantastic. The Elder Scrolls LPing community specifically is fantastic. You guys have been great, and you're a big reason why I've done this as long as I have, and I think as committed to the character as I have been. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to discuss before we say sayonara to our dear friend Annaïg here. One thing I wanted to mention is, now that I'm done with this Skyrim LP, I can finally watch all those LPs of Skyrim that I've been meaning to watch, that I blacked myself out from, and haven't all this time. And of course, the most obvious ones, Squee has a Skyrim LP, which I've never watched. Zemalf has 2 Skyrim LPs, which I have never watched. I think I watched one episode of one of his LPs, which I'm really looking forward to. His and Squee's, and of course Sorcerer Dave. That goes without saying. I want to watch his Skyrim LP. Can finally watch that. Variax, my other favorite LPer, does not have a Skyrim LP, but he has said in the past that he will do one at some point. So I'm looking forward to that. I imagine his will be fantastic. And then, of course, there's LPs that other people, lesser known people that are doing, who are, I think, subscribers or at least viewers of mine, who I will also be checking out. Grizzly Bear is doing an LP of, I think, pretty much every latter-day Elder Scrolls game right now. He's got one of Morrowind, he's got one of Oblivion, or at least he started one of Oblivion, and he started one of Skyrim, so I want to check those out. Let's see. A gentleman named Mark the Lonely Gamer, who just recently messaged me on YouTube, has started an LP that looks really interesting. He's doing it all from first person, not view, mind you, but first person narration, as far as I can tell anyway. I watched, I think, the first episode of it just to check it out. And he must have Mark, the gentleman, must have some acting experience of some kind, because he is essentially voice acting his own character, and it sounds fantastic. He sounds really good. I swear he must have some acting experience, because it sounds almost professionally done. And it looks like he's got a pretty good character with a really good backstory. I'm looking forward to watching that. So I recommend him. So yeah, I'm mentioning these people because these are people that if you don't know of them, or you know of them but haven't watched their LP and you're done with this LP, you could turn to them if you really need a Skyrim fix. Another one is Megatron Gameplay, who's been a subscriber of mine since forever. He has, I think he has at least one LP. I want to say he has 2, but I could be wrong. LPs of Skyrim. I know he has one, at least, that's ongoing right now. I mentioned Zemoff, of course. Spray and Pray, another subscriber of mine, and I'm a subscriber of him as well. I'm actually a subscriber of all these people that I mentioned. So if you are forgetting, if you watch this video and you can't remember who I mentioned, just go to my subscriber page. The channels that I'm subscribed to, rather, and you'll find all these names there. Spray and Pray has a Skyrim LP going on, which I think is going to be really good. Nyasa Gaming, who I've mentioned before, has a Skyrim LP, which looks fantastic. I've watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of that, and it's really good. I kind of cheated there and actually let myself slip through the Skyrim LP blackout because I was so late in my own LP that I figured it wouldn't interfere too much, and because hers looked so good that I just wanted to watch it. And then I want to say a user named Monochromium, who I know does LPs, mentioned in a comment that he had a Skyrim LP, or maybe he had a Skyrim character, but when I looked on his channel to see if he did in fact have an LP so I could mention him in this video, I did not see the videos for a Skyrim LP. So maybe he just mentioned that he had a character, and I took that to mean that he had an LP. I forget. But in any case, you could always check out Monochromium. He's got some good videos on his channel as well. So I apologize if I'm forgetting anybody. But that's going to be the videos that I'll be watching here for the next few weeks into the months, probably, as those LPs go on. Certainly the ones that have already been finished. One of Zemoff's LPs, Squeeze LP, Sorcerer Dave's, I think, is getting into its latter stages as well as I record this. So that, I think, unless I have anything else, I don't think I have anything else. I think that might be the end of the LP. Let me know if you guys have any questions about the LP in general, how things went, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'd do differently. Not really much that I'd do differently. It ended up going pretty well. Like I said, I'd be more careful about the mods. But otherwise, I think it worked out really well. I had a story written beforehand that I wanted to execute, and I think it went off with minimal number of hitches, I'd say. Pretty well done. Not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. Very, very satisfied. And I think the character was really cool. I got a lot of positive feedback from everyone. I got a lot of touching comments and things when dramatic things happened, like when Arender died. A lot of people... spoilers if you're skipping to the end. A lot of people commented that they missed him, and that was a really sad time for them. So it seems to me that must have struck a nerve then, that I must have been doing something right. So anyway, again, here's Annaïg crossing the border into Farron. Farron is probably right on the other side of that mountain over there, so she'll be there by the end of the day. And I think it's a little fitting, if I didn't mention already, I apologize if I did. It's a little fitting that where we end the LP, Castle, I presume that's Castle Volkihar, I think it is in view over there, because I imagine if we do revisit Annaïg's story, that location will be involved. So that's it. That's the Skyrim LP. That's the story of Annaïg. Her emergence into Skyrim, her fleeing from her homeland, her gaining her footing and making a friend, her furthering her training as a mage, saving the world in the process, and then, of course, learning the truth about her king and queen's slayer and getting her vengeance. I want to thank you guys again for being an awesome audience, for being really supportive. All the likes, subscriptions, the comments, the suggestions, all the views, you guys rock. You totally rock. And I couldn't ask for a better audience. So thank you very much for that. And I wish that I could give some credit to the mod makers. I don't have the time, frankly, to go through every mod that I've installed and find out who made it and then name them. Or even to make a list of it, it would just take a lot of time. All the mods are in the video description of every video in this Let's Play, so you could always just Google the mod name or search Skyrim Nexus or Steam Workshop and find it there. And but I give a big thank you to everyone who worked on any mods that I've used in this game. Makes the game way more enjoyable, makes the role-playing much more fun, and makes the immersion experience that you're looking for in a Let's Play, a role-playing Let's Play, much more effective, I think. So couldn't have done it without the mod makers. And then because they also deserve their due, the next video that you'll see in the playlist, the final video in the playlist, will be the credits for the makers of Skyrim, Bethesda Softworks, and their employees. So, without further ado, everyone, the end of Annaïg's LP, another LP coming up soon. Won't tell you what it is now, you just have to keep your eyes open for it. And of course, the Civilization 5 LP is ongoing, so if you are interested, head on over to check that out. And also, please do check out the LPs of the people that I mentioned just a few moments ago. They're very good, or at least they promise to be very good, and I think that you will be, if you enjoyed this, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what you see of their content. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Farewell, and I'll see you next time.